Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Education Instruction Subcommittee, February 3rd, 2026. Madam Clerk, will you take the roll for us? Everybody please sign in. %100 participation. Madam Clerk, take the roll.
Mr. Chairman, you have 6 present. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Members, any orders of the day? Anybody for anybody? Seeing none. We have 2 presentations today. We are continuing our conversation about mathematics. You'll probably see some mathematics bills coming here before us and other committees shortly, which will wind up in our full committee. We had some conversations about mathematics over the summer. And so we have 2 presentations you'll be able to ask questions on. The first up is Aaliyah Guthrie with SCORE. Aaliyah, you want to come up with whoever you're with, introduce yourself, and then hit the ground running and tell us about how we're going to make math better in Tennessee. Thanks for being here, Gail. Oh, and we're going to go out of session without objection. There we go.
Again. My name is Aaliyah.
Long time no see.
Yes. My name is Aaliyah Guthrie, and I am the Vice President of Policy and Government Relations at SCORE.
My name is Jack Roberts. I'm a policy analyst at SCORE.
Thanks for having us today. As you know, SCORE is a research and advocacy organization. SCORE has been working in partnership with the General Assembly and with the administration for 16 years. I've been at SCORE for 6 of those years. And math is a very important topic. So we're really excited to be here today. And we want to talk about its connection to workforce development and workforce opportunity for students and for our state. So does this work? No, it does not. Okay. Okay. So as our state works to attract high-paying industries, create a 21st century workforce, math skills are a really critical currency, from advanced manufacturing to healthcare, IT, finance. It's very important that students are comfortable with numbers. They know how to apply problem-solving skills to numbers, that they understand data science and use of technology. And families recognize the importance of math. In a 2022 national survey, the majority of parents strongly agreed if their child succeeds in math, they are more likely to succeed in life, and the data bears that out. So math test scores, we look at the data around math because it's an important marker of students' readiness for math beyond their high school experience into the workforce and into higher ed. And we think that highlighting some of the recent progress is a good place to start, but we also want to share with you some workforce data that indicates the importance of math.
We'll continue the data discussion that we were having just a few minutes ago. This is our 7th grade math TCAP scores over the past several years. And as you can see, scores have rebounded past pre-pandemic levels and have steadily continued to climb in the years since. Most students who access advanced math in middle school do so in 8th grade. So looking at 7th grade TCAP scores gives us a good snapshot of math readiness before then. Just over 1 in 3 7th grade students, about 39%, are proficient in math. But for economically disadvantaged students, that proficiency rate falls to 1 in 5. These improvements haven't only occurred among elementary and middle school, though. We've also seen important gains in the high school. This is a graph you just saw a few minutes ago as well, but proficiency rates have improved in Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry. Specifically zooming in on Algebra 2, in response to feedback received, new Algebra 2 standards were implemented in 2023 that replaced some abstract concepts typically only required in advanced STEM fields with a greater focus on widely applicable data analysis and quantitative reasoning skills that are better aligned to workforce need. And when we take a closer look at Algebra 2, we can see some promising signs. The share of students in the lowest category, that's the red bar, dropped in half after the standards were updated, while the share of students scoring proficient in the blue bars has increased by over 8 percentage points. This is a promising indication that the course is better serving our students and equipping them for career success. And the progress that we're talking about in math matters because for decades, researchers have established and observed a positive and significant relationship between math skills and future life outcomes. Research finds that as early as preschool, early numeracy ability predicts long-term achievement trajectories of students, including future test scores, high school math course taking patterns, and college enrollment. Recent work by the Urban Institute in the graph on the screen found that improving math scores for children at multiple life stages from preschool to age 12 is associated with higher earnings at age 30, with a larger impact than equivalent gains in reading scores. So math achievement, research finds, has enduring impacts later in life, and those enduring impacts can continue into high school, where students take advanced math courses. So taking courses like Algebra 2, for example, is associated with improved post-secondary and labor market outcomes, like increased college going, attainment, and earnings. Even for students who don't attend college, earnings seem to improve. And Algebra 2 prepares students for advanced courses like pre-calculus and statistics, which are also linked to improved post-secondary and earnings outcomes later in life. And finally, nationwide, students who take more math and English courses consistently perform better on the ACT. According to ACT's own analysis of the class of 2025, students nationwide who took 4 math and English courses, which is required in Tennessee, consistently outperform students with just 3 or fewer years of math and English instruction.
So we know there's a strong relationship between math readiness and future outcomes, long-term life outcomes, and that's really important in Tennessee as we face a critical workforce gap. So thanks to the efforts of this body, THEC, TBR, TDOE, Tennessee has seen a rise in our post-secondary attainment over the past decade. So folks are probably familiar with the Drive to 55 that was initially established in I think it was 2013. So the Drive to 55 set a goal based on data that showed 60% of jobs would require some type of credential or degree beyond a high school diploma. And we've increased from about 33% to close to 49% of Tennesseans holding some type of credential beyond a high school diploma. But that is still falling short. And this, just to say, this attainment rate, it does include short-term it includes credentials and degrees. We would like for it to be a more comprehensive measure to include other types of training beyond high school, but a critical gap remains. Updated labor market data looking at 2031 actually shows that it's 63% of jobs will require something beyond a high school diploma. Some type of post-secondary training. And so there's this lingering question of not just whether a student has a credential or a degree, but what is it in? So as we look at more detailed data about the degrees and credentials that students earn, only about half of the credentials are actually aligned to high demand occupations. And then we see from high school diploma, TCAT certificate, diploma, all the way up to a bachelor's degree, there's variation, there's a range in what the earning potential of those different credentials and degrees are. So it is important for students to get something beyond a high school diploma. But we're increasingly asking and urging policymakers and partners to ask, what is the degree in? What is the credential in? Because that is where you see this difference in demand and earnings. So we worked with a group of stakeholders over the last several years to develop a framework to evaluate the credential and degree according to the earnings and the demand that it would prepare that student for. So this is a framework, we call it the Impact Credential Framework, and it essentially gives a 1, 2, or 3 star to every credential or degree that a student could earn in Tennessee. So does it meet this earnings threshold? Does it meet this job outlook threshold? And this is based on Tennessee data to know, yes, you're earning a degree or credential. How can you be sure that is going to set you up for long-term success? And so better evaluating not just did you get a degree, but what in. And our goal for this framework is really for K-12 and higher education stakeholders to think about long-term economic opportunity and to think for students to be better informed about the choices that they're making. We found that 3 in 4 of the credentials that are considered impact credentials require college-level math coursework. So taking it back to math, we know that math is important for readiness. We know that there's data about when you're 12, your math performance is going to have big impact on your lifetime earnings, your earnings at 30. But we also see that most of the impact credentials that lead to a high-wage, high-demand job require post-secondary math coursework. So the math courses that students might encounter would be technical math found in certificate and associate programs, in the trades, to general education math and degree programs, like college algebra or introductory statistics, even college coursework like calculus, that you might need for an engineering or applied science, computer science program. So it's really important that we educate students and families about those high impact pathways, and that we ensure we have really strong foundations in math so that they're actually equipped to take that opportunity. And a few recommendations we have. So maintain our rigorous expectations, as Jack spoke to, requiring that students take multiple math courses, having more supports for students in early math, screening and intervention, strengthening supports for educators, the instructional materials that they're using, the training that they receive, guaranteed access to students when they're in middle school to take advanced math coursework. So if they're ready for it, making sure that they have the opportunity to advance, and then strengthening that connection between high school math and workforce. So how do we make sure that our math coursework is rigorous and also relevant to the world beyond high school? And I'll just close with this final slide. The point here is to say that Tennessee jobs are going to require math skills. So Algebra 2 introduces students to data science. We know that this is a growing demand in Tennessee. We want for students to have a data literacy. Actually, 1 in 5 job postings in Tennessee say that they're seeking data science skills, and these are introduced in Algebra 2. Roughly a quarter of postings in manufacturing, trade, agriculture, transportation, they're seeking applicants with data science skills. 12 of the 30 fastest growing occupations require math and data science. Math-related occupations are projected to grow faster than average occupations over the next decade. And what we learned from the Boyd Center, their employer survey, is that unfortunately nearly 2/3, 59% of business leaders report that their employees lacked or they were not able to find the appropriately trained workers for their employment needs. With the greatest need being in West Tennessee. So we think that emphasizing math, ensuring we have strong foundations in math, and it will help us meet our workforce needs, our economic needs for our state, for our businesses, but also for those individual students, their ability to access a high-paying, high-demand job. So thank you for having us, and I'm happy to take any questions about this data or otherwise.
I'm going to start with me real quick. On your data that you're working on with economic development, are you factoring in how AI is affecting that not only today, but what AI looks like in 10 years on job outcomes and outlooks based off of what's going to be available to those students? Because we may have to revamp this in 2 or 3 years with what happens with AI and how much we start to use it.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think knowing how to best prepare students for whatever the future holds with AI is very, very challenging. One thing I'll note is that in our job outlook data that we use in the framework, it is a 10-year projection. So we're looking at data from our Department of Labor and from the U.S. Department of Labor, their Bureau of Labor Statistics, to understand what's the demand at a 10-year projection. But of course, the projections are only as good as the data that goes into it, to understand what the impact of AI will be on the job market.
And then currently in state law, it says on guaranteed math access for the 7th graders who score proficient, that it's not guaranteed for them at the local level. It's an option that they want to provide for that. 2 questions. One is SCORE's position is it shouldn't be optional. They should get that opportunity for those students who score proficient in math to take advanced math in 8th grade. And is there correlated evidence that shows the students that take accelerated math in 8th grade have better results as we get on down the line academically?
So we worked with the legislature to bring a bill in 2022. That was I think it was called automatic enrollment or advanced acceleration. I can't remember what the acronym was. That would say a local board policy for who gets access to the next advanced course should be based on objective data. And what we were trying to solve for at the time was students who were proficient, who were ready for that advanced coursework, but didn't get a teacher recommendation or a parent recommendation, and so they weren't opted in. And we wanted to make sure that the access to that class wasn't being prevented by some subjective criteria, but it was based on their grade or their TCAP assessment. So I think what we've seen from the implementation of that policy in 2022 is that districts are still using that discretion or that flexibility. And a lot of students still don't have access to that advanced coursework. About half of middle schools in our state don't currently offer Algebra 1. And we see that there's actually the biggest, and Jack, please feel free to interrupt me with the correct information, the biggest driver of whether a student has access to an Algebra 1 course in 8th grade is the size of their school. And so we know that there are logistical and real challenges to being able to offer advanced coursework for students. But I think our fundamental belief is that if a student is ready for advanced coursework, we should do what we can to provide it. And then I think as a state, figuring out how do we make that true? Because we know that. Like I said, and Jack shared about what are the long-term earnings of a student who is successful in math, even in that middle school.
Jack, long-term opportunities in advanced math.
Yeah, I think one thing I'll add is that when students access advanced math earlier in their educational career, that opens up more doors in high school. They can take more math courses or more advanced math courses. They can go farther from taking pre-calculus to maybe calculus. And doing that in high school, there's strong research that suggests that it leads to really strong economic impacts, not only in post-secondary, but also in earnings and in the job market in general. So opening those opportunities in middle school opens more doors later down the line.
Thank you, Representative Johnson.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the PowerPoint. All I could think of was teaching algebra and geometry, and as many as kids as I had, there were that many questions of why am I going to need this? And that's sort of the adult explanation for why you need it. But I wish I'd made a PowerPoint of my explanation, because I was asked that literally every single day. Because as they start to go from that concrete math to abstract math, they really want to know, why am I doing this? Where am I ever going to use this? I'm like, kind of every day. But so I appreciate that. But one thing that I'm curious about that I haven't seen in a while, and I didn't see it up here, but it doesn't mean you don't have it. Years ago, when it came to math and advanced math, especially differences between the sexes, between male and female students. Are you seeing, is there a gap between male and female students with math still? Have we closed that? Are we closing it? Do you all have that data? I'm just curious.
Score.
We definitely have access to that information. The department does report proficiency rates on their data downloads page, and you can bifurcate it by sex. On our Tennessee 2030 dashboards, you can also choose that as one of the ways to look at the data. But I would need to follow up with you to see what the difference is in proficiency rates. I know that we've also done some independent analysis of not proficiency, but access to Algebra 1 and whether that is different by sex. So I can share that with your office too.
Representative Johnson.
Yeah, thanks. I'd be really interested in that, because we were getting at a really good point with that. And I hope that it's continuing. I want to see the same thing with socioeconomic groups and everything. And so I just think that's really important that we're continuing on that trajectory, because when I was a student in high school in math, you definitely saw the female students being treated differently than the male students. I hope that's gone, but it'd be great to see in 2025 what does that look like. And again, I have to say, I wish we would be able to get the same information that we're getting on all our public schools from our private schools, but unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do that.
Ms. Guthrie, when you provide that information, if you provide to Chairman White to disseminate to the whole Education Committee, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your testimony. We appreciate it. And
Thank you.
if you'll step away. Oh, I'm sorry. Representative Reedy.
There we go. I appreciate the roundtable discussion, and Mr. Chairman, kick it in the drive if you need to, but also and I see the situation that all schools do not provide the higher levels of math in there. And of course, we don't know where AI is going, but in your mind's eye, Mr. Chairman, where do you think we need to be? Because it is important when you have a student that excels and then they hit the stone wall and are not taking any further, In my experience as a junior officer in the military, I had the job as a training officer. So if you came to me and said, Lieutenant Reedy, I'm ready to go to airborne school, just whatever, you were ready to go. And when you were ready to go, I was ready to send you. And then I find out, well, there's not enough slots. Well, 60, 90 days, 6 months later, when I said, okay, we got a slot, well, you lost interest, and that's what we're doing to our kids when we don't help them advance. Would it be through computer education, them learning this, or getting that student to a school district close by to get that? Help me understand what we need to do.
So to throw 2 cents in, then I'll go to score is one of the problems we have is like Ms. Guthrie said, is a small school, right? Maybe only has one middle school in the whole district. If they're going to offer that advanced math, they have to find a teacher to teach it. So it may be an issue of we have to figure out a way to get that teacher, another teacher in that school credentialed to be able to teach the Algebra 1, or we may have to use technology to afford the opportunity for that student to be able to take advantage of that in a smaller district. So there's logistical problems that we're going to have to work out, but there's also the ability to solve it through either maybe certification for a teacher, or maybe using technology to be able to gain access to other great teachers in the state through possibly very strict, and I'm not a fan of virtual, but very strict guidelines on how you can address virtual learning to a student in a rural setting that doesn't have that opportunity. Ms. Guthrie? Oh, well, hold it. Representative Johnson, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I've got a friend from rural Virginia, and one of the things they did was it is virtual, and virtual with math is difficult, but she was offered courses with either community colleges or universities that she could do through her school program. So, we do have to use everything that we have at our fingertips, but math and virtual is quite difficult.
Ms. Guthrie?
I think that the bill that passed in 2022 was a start of ensuring more students would have access to the coursework they're prepared for. And I think your point about losing that engagement and that initial interest is such a loss for that student and for our state if they disengage from their education because the opportunity wasn't provided for them. And I think there will be challenges in implementation that we will have to solve, but I think requiring that a student who is ready has access, it forces the conversation that we're going to solve that issue for the student, and that the adults are going to come together to figure it out, rather than right now where there's not that requirement to come up with the solution. So I think this is a really important conversation for our state to have of how do we meet the students where their needs are and where their readiness is.
Representative Reedy?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And of course, I get excited when I talk to young people that are going through dual credits and getting that. And of course, my kids did that, and they were really ready before they went to college, which was not something available to me. But then I'm looking at that too, saying, okay, well, my kids in Humphreys County, they were going to Nashville State. So even you do have 8th graders that are, if that's a possibility, to go to that Nashville Community College, just whatever it is, and saying, hey, this kid is so bright, boy or girl, that there's that chance that they could be connected even into that avenue, venue, whatever you want to call it. And of course, you got to get the parents to get them there because they're not driving on their own. But I guess my challenge, Mr. Chairman, in looking at all of this is to help our young people to excel. We really require guidance counselors that are really sincere, that they have the crystal ball and they're looking 5 years, 10 years out, telling your son or daughter, saying, here's the future if you want that $77,000 job. This is what you need to be doing. But that's it. When kids start to learn or love to learn, we need to keep them on that path and not let some knucklehead throw up a roadblock and then say, no, you don't want to do that. You need to go do this and discourage them. But it was tough for me learning math. And I took remedial math at Austin Peay to finally get me on college level stuff. So it's some of us are just not as quick as others in different areas. But I appreciate the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Score.
Thank you.
Members, also, you will see a bill coming soon about mathematics on on guaranteed math for our students that are excelling, to be able to push them and maybe give the locals a lot more flexibility on deliverability, looking at partnering with community colleges or universities, just giving them the flexibility on the baseline to figure out how to do this. And then if they have hurdles, we can come back later on and help them with the hurdles. Next up, we have Tennessee Can. We have Chelsea Crawford. Chelsea, come on up if you'll introduce yourself and then tell us what you want to tell us about math. And thanks for being here today. You're on.
Let's see. Thank you for having me, Chairman and members of the committee. I'm very excited to be here as the daughter of a former middle school science and math teacher for 30-something years. I'm just tickled that you all are interested in math and that you're having these conversations. I am Chelsea Crawford. I'm Executive Director at Tennessee Can. We are a statewide education advocacy organization that really works with one goal. We want to make sure that students have access to a great education that's going to give them academic foundations that they need to succeed in life. So with that, when it comes to math, I think we've heard a couple times today that Tennessee is making big progress, and that matters greatly for our students. Our nation's report card, which you all have heard a lot about today, has shown that we have rebounded to pre-pandemic levels of proficiency in math. That is not a thing that comes easily. That's actually work that our students and our teachers put in great effort to achieve. But in Tennessee, we actually have ranked third in the nation for recovery in terms of math proficiency, ranked by the Education Recovery Scorecard that was developed with researchers at Harvard and Stanford. So folks who really know what they're talking about. So Tennessee has been number 3 in terms of pandemic recovery and math. And as you've seen over a number of years, we've been making a lot of progress moving in the right direction that we do not want to see slow. But still, the majority of our children in our classrooms in public schools today are not yet proficient. TCAP data in 2025 shows us that 64% of our 8th graders and 54% of our 4th grade students are not meeting proficiency in math. And so these students are missing critical skills that they will rely on or not be able to rely on as they progress through their education. And that matters a lot. I think for a lot of folks, math can be kind of an amorphous topic. It feels very, kind of heady and intellectual. It can be hard for people to understand how it might apply tangibly in their life. But of course, we know that is certainly not the case. Math skills are needed in jobs in different sectors, as we heard a little bit earlier today. And so I think one of the questions is, does it really matter what skills our students have in math, how much they know? And for me, the answer is yes, because I want children to have access to every opportunity that they are able to stumble into. None of us have a crystal ball about where we are going to go in our life. We try to make the best decisions we can for children in school to prepare them with the skill sets and the academic foundations they're going to need over the course of their life. But we don't know what God's plan holds for us. And so for me, it's really ensuring that we are giving our kids every opportunity for foundations and success. At the state policy level, it's important for us to pay attention to how we are tracking our progress in math, how our teachers, our parents, and our students are working together to really accomplish success and proficiency in mathematics subjects. And unlike other subject areas, math is hierarchical, so the learning builds on each other. When you think about being able to scaffold up skills, that's really great when you have those foundations down pat. But if you are missing a skill, it becomes very hard to build on something that you have a gap in. And so kind of that hierarchical set of academic standards in math is something that we need to pay attention to at the state. By 4th grade, our students are expected to fluently add and subtract in multiple digit numbers up to 1 million and analyze geometric shapes. You all might remember that from elementary school. By 8th grade, they're getting into linear functions. That's the math behind things that we use in everyday decision making, wages, pricing, which cell phone plan might be the most cost effective to sign up for. When would it make a great difference to try to buy a home versus rent an apartment? It's those kind of decisions that really come into play. And when we think about reading skill development, this General Assembly has focused a lot of time and investment on reading and early literacy. Algebra 1 has a little bit of similarities. Algebra 1, as we've heard a little bit today, is an important hinge point in mathematics and a predictor of future success. Students who do not reach proficiency are far less likely to complete advanced math coursework, earn industry credentials, and succeed in post-secondary coursework. So, of course, we know we hear from students, we hear from parents who want to see more proficiency and achievement in mathematics, but there is another group that's talking about this quite a bit, and that's our employers in the state. We heard some jobs data in the presentation just before this, but a lot of our jobs are really requiring some of those math skills, and it's not always in the places you would think. I think a lot of folks think about engineers when they think about some of the advanced math coursework. You might think about a company like Oracle that's moving big high-tech jobs to Nashville and creating lots of high-wage income opportunities for Tennesseans, but it's also the high school algebra teacher. You know, there are lots of different professions that rely on these skills, and so no matter what path a child may take over the course of their life, it's really important to ensure those academic foundations are being taught, again, in that hierarchical kind of way, all along their progression in K-12. So now the question is where we're going to go from here. This General Assembly has spent a little bit of time in the last few years thinking about math and kind of plotting out a pathway for us to begin to accelerate the gains and proficiency and growth that we've seen in a number of years. Members of this committee have been a part of that, and I just want to share a couple of examples of where we are seeing some real bright spots out of our public schools. Gibson County, 8th grade math proficiency is now nearly 58%. Crockett County, over 50% of 8th graders are proficient. So we are on the right track. Not all of our schools and districts are on that pathway just yet, and we want to make sure that as we're thinking about state level policy in mathematics, that we're going to support all of our public schools and public school teachers to be able to help their students succeed. So for me, the next phase is about proficiency and access. We cannot take our eye off the ball on the high expectations that we set for students in elementary and middle and in high school. We want to continue to see that proficiency number bump up across the board. That starts with work that's already underway. A couple of weeks ago, before the ice storm, we heard an update from the Tennessee Department of Education on some of the work that they're already doing to support teachers with professional development opportunities, to try and really wrap around our teacher core the supports and resources that we know those folks are needing. And so we definitely want to see that work continue, scale and expand as we are able to do. But I think we also need to see some earlier signs of student success. You all passed the Tennessee Literacy Success Act a few years ago. You probably heard a lot about a universal reading screener. Unlike our kind of policy framework for literacy, in math, we don't have the same parameters around our universal math screeners. Districts are required to give these out to students as part of the RTI framework. However, there is no reporting mechanism that kind of comes back up to the state level administrators who are really trying to help you all, help the governor's office, help all of us work together grounded in data about where our kids are performing. So a universal math screener could be a great opportunity if we're collecting data back to the state level policymaking. I think we would get some valuable insights there. Importantly, before I move off screeners, these are very low stakes diagnostic tools. They need to stay that way. These are the things that really help teachers understand what the student knows, what the student missed, and how to go back and fill in those skill sets. The third piece is a matter of access. Students who are behind need some support to get caught up. That's just the fact of life. We've seen that work really well as we've come out of the pandemic. Our state took a pretty innovative approach by putting in place supports for students like high quality, high dosage tutoring. That's something that we continue to hear from districts is particularly effective for helping kids catch up and get where they need to be. So ensuring that we've got those levels of support, I think, is and access for students to those levels of support is important. And we need to think about students who are ready to move on. We've heard a little bit of the conversation about students who may be ready for advanced coursework, but there is a knucklehead barrier in the way. I want to make sure from Tennessee CAN's perspective that if we have a student who is ready to go on, that we can make a promise to them that they will have a course that is waiting for them. Finally, in conclusion, I just want to share a little bit of a story about a student from Lauderdale County, Charles Hayes. He was one of three brothers raised on a farm. I mean, it's rural West Tennessee. You all know how beautiful it is out there. As a someone who was born there, I think West Tennessee is the best Tennessee. But but Charles grew up in this family, one of three brothers. He in high school got awards for mastery in history, so was very interested in history. He thought he wanted to go to college to become a pharmacist, couldn't afford it. So when he graduated, he went into military service. He joined the Navy. He was deployed in wartime active combat. He came home and wanted to move into the private sector, start a family. And so, what the student was able to accomplish was coming back home and finding a company that was able to offer a job to veterans. And just like that, my grandfather, Charles Hayes, was able to come from the West Tennessee farm and began to work on building rocket engines for the Atlas mission, which helped put our Americans into space as part of Project Mercury. So you really cannot tell what life may hold for a student. None of us have that crystal ball, but ensuring that when you all are thinking about setting leadership policy in mathematics, really making sure that we're keeping our students at the fore, really making sure that we're building academic foundations for them to have, to be able to seize every opportunity that may present to them in their lives, and that our teachers and our schools are well supported to be able to see that success in our classrooms.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Before I move on, Representative Hurt, you have the microphone. Go right ahead.
Thank you for that presentation. I
Yes,
just
sir.
want to make note that all three counties that she mentioned are in my district. We're just missing,
And what counties are those, by the way?
that would be Lauderdale, Crockett, Gibson, and I also have part of O'Bine. So really proud of that and live in Lauderdale County. So
Yes, sir.
anyway, I just wanted to acknowledge that. I appreciate you giving me an opportunity, and congratulations to those teachers and students and those schools for the work they're doing. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
So, Ms. Crawford, talk on professional development. We had the presentation from the department 2 weeks ago now,
Yes.
and the importance and what that's having. Can you expand on professional development for our teachers at all?
Yes. I mean, I think certainly when we think about preparing teachers, we've got folks who have been in the game for a long time, teachers who have been in the classroom, who are tested experts in being able to support our students. We have folks who are newer to the classroom. We have folks who are in our EPPs who are coming from a high school, getting ready to go into a classroom and learning how to be a teacher in college. And so we've got a spectrum of teachers, a spectrum of readiness and expertise around instruction. And I think one of the things that we have gotten pretty well accomplished in Tennessee in the last few years is being able to bring a lot of coherency to professional development for teachers, ensuring that we can drive problems of practice, right? So if we have a bright spot, we can lift that up. Teachers can learn from somebody maybe in the neighboring district or the neighboring section of Tennessee, how to do this better. The department has put online a couple of resources. There is an online hub where there's lots of video resources, PDFs, kind of kits that they can take into their classroom. But I don't think we've seen the same level of professional development approach in mathematics as we did, for example, in literacy. A few years ago, our state undertook a very comprehensive literacy policy, and that policy included a significant amount of professional development, including some that was paid for by the state of Tennessee to support those teachers and actually completing the training. We do know that the department has worked on some of those things. They need to help make them more accessible to teachers. I think that's what we heard out of the teacher panel that was a part of that Mathematics Support Act. Make it easier for us to get to, make it easier for us to kind of take off the shelf the teaching practices that we need and apply them in our classroom. I think one of the things that was particularly exciting about that report was looking at exemplar Tennessee teachers. How can we build into our professional development libraries actual examples of a Tennessee teacher doing this well in their community?
Any other questions? Representative Johnson, go ahead.
Thank you. What grade did you say you taught?
I've never taught before. My mother was a public school teacher.
Oh, your
for her.
mother was a teacher. Okay.
That's right.
Well, what is your background in education as far as your university?
I've worked, I
Ms.
went to
Hold
the,
on. Ms.
yes.
Crawford, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for recognizing me. I went to the University of Tennessee. I've been working in state level policy since 2013, K-12, also a little bit of higher education, but my focus has been K-12 since 2013. Prior to this role, I was at the Tennessee Department of Education as chief of staff for about 4.5 years. I took that job in January 2020 and was excited about doing the literacy work that we've talked about. Of course, we hit the pandemic and was able to do really hard but really important work through that time to support our public schools.
Representative Johnson.
Okay, I think you recently penned an op-ed in the Tennessean, right, that really focused on privatizing and draining money from our schools for other areas. But I guess my big concern is that where are the folks who have been in the classroom that are helping do this work? And from the standpoint of your organization, because I see a lot of interest in helping candidates that are anti-public school from your organization, but not really doing the work in the schools.
So you want to answer that question?
Well, I would just say, I think the North Star that drives me every day is supporting students. Like I said, my mother was a public school teacher when I was in high school. I was thinking about what I wanted to be when I grew up. And she said, you know, when I told her I wanted to be a teacher at the time, she said, baby, do anything but that. It is a hard job. It's a thankless job. I want more for you. And frankly, through my professional career, that experience has driven me a lot to do the work that I am doing in policy and kind of focusing on that aspect of the education landscape.
Wow.
Hold on. Representative Johnson, follow up.
I can't ever say that it was a thankless job. I think that I got more input from my students, from their parents, from the community. It was the most thankful job I think that I ever had. And it was definitely a difficult job and a very hard job. A lot of my colleagues talk about how busy it is and how tough it is up here. Yeah, try being in a classroom for 9 hours a day and you have to be on every 15 minutes, you know. But there are so many thanks for that job. So I hate that your mother looks at it that way after a long career. But I just think it's really important that the people that are talking about where we need to go and what we need to do need to have a little more experience in education as their background.
Representative Reedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it's an interesting conversation. And of course, my wife's an educator, but it's amazing to me to find out that there's career changes, even with educators, that they will get credentials in another complete area, you know, start in English and end in math or vice versa, or be the next ag teacher, which is when you're in agriculture, you need mathematics as well. So I guess with that, it's my mind's eye. I was like, okay, so is there a way that maybe we should be looking at that educator saying, hey, we are short in the mathematics and you've got a brainiac of a teacher that is really good at math, but kind of, well, I'm burnt out. Let me go teach another subject matter before we get back to it. Do you have any thoughts on how we could help promote that teacher in wanting to kind of shift gears again and reintroduce them back to the mathematics, or share your thoughts with me?
Ms. Crawford.
Sure. Yes, I think it's a wonderful thing when teachers can kind of expand their horizons and get to experience different subjects. I also recognize that it's difficult to find rock star teachers in every subject in every school. And so it's a really difficult, staffing in general is a really difficult puzzle to kind of put together for a lot of our administrators. I think one of the things that we've seen some districts doing well is experimenting with a differentiated pay schedule. And so if there's a teacher who is particularly well suited for a classroom, or perhaps there is a classroom that is in dire need of a great teacher, those districts have implemented pay to be able to incentivize individuals to go into those roles. I think you also see lots of conversations about certifications for teachers who are able to kind of go through in great partnership with some of our EPPs in the state to be able to kind of expand into those horizons. But I will say kind of, especially in the math area in high school, we hear districts districts say quite often that they are having a hard time finding the teachers to staff some of these classrooms. Where are the Algebra 1 teachers? Where are the Algebra 2 teachers? And we certainly do have a teacher shortage. We have a teacher shortage in mathematics as well. But the thing that I would point out there is that we want to make sure that we are incentivizing every, high-performing algebra student to come out of the classroom and be a high-performing algebra teacher if that's possible.
Cool. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anything else, members? Ms. Crawford, thank you for your testimony. We really appreciate it today.
Thank you very much.
Members, that concludes our presentations today. I want to remind you all that we have 3 caption bills in this committee. If there's something you've heard in these presentations that you have an idea on and would like the committee to get behind it, reach out to my office and we'll be happy to entertain that. And we'll bring it before the whole committee and we'll have a discussion on whether or not we have an idea that this committee wants to push forward to the full committee. With that being said, if we do not have any bills on our agenda for next week, we will not meet. Without objection, we are adjourned.